Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome back to the Kingdom of Israel. All right, so we're going to continue on with the part two, looking at Israeli deception worldwide, also the truth about the real Israel, the truth about the real Israel, also dealing with Israeli deception. The truth about the real Israel is that it's a people and they're still out there. And it has nothing to do with the people that are occupying the land over in the Fertile Crest. That where they are bent or intent on keeping the region destabilized. And when you talk about that people, those that are acting as Israel in that region, there's a lot of speculation around who these people are, right? You have history about the Khazars, you have history about the Ashkenazis, right? And they deny all of that, okay? But we're going to look at the truth about the real Israel, focused on a people that are still out there, they're still scattered abroad, okay? And the prophecy speaks to them being recovered. And in the course of being recovered, it said that they would be put in their land. Not just one tribe, as right now they're portraying, to be of that prophecy, but they only represent one tribe, as in Judah. Where are the other tribes? Where's the entire kingdom? That's another thing. The writings do not talk about a state of Israel. The writings talk about a kingdom of Israel. So there are a number of things that point out Israeli deception, and that these people are not who they say they are, but the nefarious work that they're doing with respect to occupying that land and assisting with destabilizing that region, that's all a part of a open secret to maintain European superiority throughout the world, as it is their aim or their hope to neutralize Ishmael over in that region, the Muslims. That's their aim. That's their goal, to conquer the Muslims in that region. And America, the US, needed a base, more than having, just the base here, base there, but they needed a stronghold over there. So these two people were able to come together and come up with the plan that they would move into that region and act as if these other class of Europeans will be the children of Israel, or Jews for that matter. And all of it is Israeli deception. So we're going to talk about that. Thank you all for coming into the live. So we're going to talk about that as we deal with the truth about Israel, or the truth about the real Israel, looking at Israeli deception. And this is part two, as we're getting off into it. I want to thank you all for coming in. As I say, you can tap the screen, that part, it doesn't cost anything, okay? And share the live, and you repost the live. Now, when you tap the screen, that's just your way of showing your support for the live. Okay. But you share the live and you repost the live. Okay, I appreciate that. Also, you can share it to your stories. All right. So again, as we get off into the truth about the real Israel, we're just focused on the fact that the people that are in that land right now, these are not the genuine heirs. In fact, I always point out what Nasser, that president of Egypt, what he said during that time, how when they left, they were a very dark-skinned people. But upon their return, they were so pale, left him trying to figure out what happened, what's happening. And then you have a number of other nation states that do not approve or agree. They don't recognize the state of Israel as being proper, appropriate, or just. So we're going to get off into prophecy 2026, as we do a part 2 to the truth about the real Israel, talking about the real children of Israel that are still out there, scattered abroad, but that they may have hope that according to the writing, their day is coming. And all of them that have inherited the lies, talking about these European nations, going around hijacking other people's heritage, occupying people's land and trying to act as if they are a people that they are not. They are going to receive their just due. They're not going to win, you all. They're not going to win. They're not going to benefit. They're not going to prosper. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and get started, right now as we jump off into this. And I say tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. That's how you show your support, for the live. You share that live and you repost the live. Okay? You can share it within your stories for me as well. All right? But let's jump off into it. Let's get this thing started. As we go, in fact, here's the other thing. I will be reading from the Bible, but this is not about anyone's religion. We're going to focus on the heritage. We're going to focus on the hidden meaning the parables. We're going to look at the allegory. We're going to get off into those things that are not obviously seen with respect to what's written. A lot of people don't really get the understanding of these writings because they're trying to deal with it on its face. They're trying to deal with it literally, and you can easily get lost and things then start to not make sense. So we're going to tie in the hidden meaning behind what's written so that you can make it applicable to your life this day, that it'll make sense. Okay? So we're not dealing with Christianity, Catholicism, or Judaism. Okay? Those things were created by men. They're no good. Those things can be tossed into the trash. All right? So I guess you can see up in the image, we have Trump dressed in Jesus, looking confused, like not understanding what's going on. And then you have Netanyahu dressed in his Israeli suit, right? He's in frustration and or anger, at the religion being that of Christianity and or white Jesus, and it's destroying the flag of the Israelis. Well, all of this is political theater. none of this is real, right? This image above is my creation of the Three Stooges. For anyone that's familiar, with who the Three Stooges are, right? It's all political theater. It's all centered around a narrative trap. So we're going to get off into the truth about the real Israel, focused on Israeli deception, part 2. And I'm going to read out of the Bible, using the verses from the Bible to explain this deception, to show that these people are not the people, to show that God is not going to bless America. But these criminals, right? These people will receive the reward of the wicked. They're not going to win. I just want to tell you that. Okay? All right, so again, share the live, repost the live. All right, and to show your support for the live, tap the screen. That part doesn't cost anything. So we're going to start off with Psalms. We're going to go Psalms 119 and 98. Okay? He says, thou through thy commandments has made me wiser. And this is what we have to understand. There's a different type of knowledge out there. You have the knowledge within righteousness, and then you have knowledge within corruption and or wickedness. But within righteousness, he says, thou commandments has made me wiser than mine enemies, for they are ever with me. Looking at the world around us, thank you all for coming into the live. Looking at the world around us, you all, we're surrounded by corruption. And to overcome that corruption, we must have an understanding of righteousness. But where do we find it? How do we obtain it? Because a number of us, from the time we came out of our mother's womb, from kindergarten on up to graduating into higher education, we've been in the hand of the wicked. And they didn't teach and or give us any comprehension of true righteousness. It just would not benefit them to do so, because they know that righteousness is an antidote to overcome the wickedness. So they're not going to teach from that perspective. So the enemies are all around us with their corrupt knowledge, and we've been indoctrinated with it. And this is why for so many people, it's hard. It's hard to get rid of it. It's hard to let it go as we talk about the truth about the real Israel and not the imposters. Those that are dealing with Israeli deception, but there is a people of a true heritage that are still out there, scattered abroad. Number 99, he says, I have more understanding than all my teachers. Now, in this sense, having an understanding of righteousness will give you more understanding than all your teachers, as you may have a doctorate degree. So the comprehension within knowledge based on righteousness just a little bit outweighs all of the understanding within the comprehension of unrighteousness. Two types of knowledge. So he says, I have more understanding than all my teachers when you come into the understanding of true righteousness and how the commandments work. He says, for thy testimonies are my meditation. And this is what we're supposed to be focused on, as some of you have heard, meditate. Meditate day and night. But meditate on what? Oh, you just want to quiet your mind? Oh, you want to meditate on manifesting a new house, a car, or something? See, we haven't been given and or guided within real instruction to understand the point of meditating. He said testimony, right? For thy testimonies are my meditation. We find that the testimonies can be seen within Isaiah 8:20, where he says, for the law and for the testimony. He said, if they do not speak according to these words, he said, it's because there's no light in them. So we have the law and we have the testimony, which those are the prophecies. When we understand these things, we become wise. Otherwise, the knowledge and understanding that we have is carnal, something we've been taught within the precepts and or the traditions of men. So today, now we struggle with righteousness, that knowledge, that wisdom, because we've been inundated with corruption and lies and the knowledge of wickedness. And it's all through the pragmatic ways of these European institutions centered around maintaining and or upholding that European inferiority. I had to put that part, in there because they are inferior. They are truly inferior, trying to act as if they are superior. Number 100, it says, reading from Psalms 119, 100. I understand more than the ancients, meaning you can go back and look at all of the civilizations. When you deal with the commandments of righteousness, it gives you more understanding than all of those civilizations that we give so much prize or praise and credit to. Thank you all for coming into the live. You can tap the screen. That part don't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. And make sure you share the live, repost the live. You guys can repost it in your story. He says, because I keep thy precepts. So if you've been confused as far as where is the house for righteousness, where is the comprehension for righteousness, he says, I keep thy precepts. He said, I meditate on thy testimonies. So when you're in meditation, it should be on understanding these commandments. It should be on understanding the precepts. It should be on looking at prophecy. This is what gives us wisdom in righteousness. Now, if you don't want wisdom or knowledge in righteousness, then you reject these writings, these statements, and you continue to live according to the pragmatism. You continue to live according to the false perception of life that you've been given that continues to decline. 101, he says, I have refrained my feet from every evil way. Have we been able yet to discern what the evil way is? Or have we just conflated everything all in one lump? And we're just going about it. And depending on who has the most money, that's who we give our ear to as being successful and intelligent. The most successful, intelligent, wealthy, prosperous people, they're all wicked and corrupt. A number of you, you know it. Thank you all for coming. As we talk about the truth about the real Israel, looking at this Israeli deception that's out there. Okay. He says, I have refrained my feet from every evil way, that I might keep thy word. So keeping thy word is tied into knowing the precepts, is tied into meditating on the testimonies, which goes back to where he says, through thy commandments, it has made me wiser. But a number of us, we can't get that. It's like that is just preposterous to a number of you, because you're looking for something more audacious. You want to be entertained. You want to be thrilled, and or you want to have your imagination stimulated. Because if somebody come on and they want to get deep and start just going off into a deep conversation, oh, you're just so sucked in. That's entertainment. But when it comes down to the raw truth, it's bitter. And just like bitters, you push away from it. But that's the thing that will give you healing. That's the thing that will give you vitality. Luke 12:42, he says, and the Lord said, as we're dealing with the allegory, the hidden meaning in these writings, so that it can make sense to you, that we'll know the truth about Israel and we'll be able to expose Israeli deception. And we can then apply these words to our life that goes beyond the scope of the religions. The religions are a trap. The religions were created by men. Catholicism, Judaism, Christianity. These are all a part of the trap. But if we meditate on the testimonies, the precepts, if we stay focused on these things, it will open us up to the truth within righteousness. That we can even understand what a Christ is, what it is to be anointed, what it is to serve and worship, to have a Lord or a God. But right now, we're just fumbling around in the dark, as it says. Our eyes are open, but we're walking around like blind men because we've been engaging pragmatism. A number of us have denied that we've been indoctrinated and have never pushed themselves or pursued the point of eradicating and or getting that indoctrination out, dealing with a deep sense of introspection, that you can scrutinize all of these things, all of these lies that you've been told, that you can finally get yourself on solid ground. And let me tell you, it's very painful to deal in that moment of scrutiny, because you then come to realize everything that you've been taught is a lie. And then you feel how vulnerable you are, because the majority of us are grown. And we've built our lives on a foundation of lies to then have to start all over again. That's crushing for a lot of folks. A lot of folks would rather just walk away and keep living the lie. It's easier. And the Lord said, who then is that faithful and wise steward? So do you think Trump is a faithful and wise student or steward, or a Netanyahu is a faithful and wise steward, or any of these nations of these heads of states are faithful and wise stewards? They can't be, because all of them are pandering to corruption. So they're not faithful and they're not wise, although they call themselves Christian nationalists or Jews or, bishops or whatever they call themselves. They're liars. They're deceivers. And their father is that of the devil, a deceiver. But who is that faithful and wise steward? See, a steward is someone that takes care of something. And when you look at how these individuals are taking care of the world, of people, they're not doing a good job. They're bad stewards. But who is that faithful and wise steward? Whom his Lord shall make ruler over all his household. So right now, the world is in the hand of the wicked. And we see how they are destroying the world, how they are destroying the people. As we talk about the truth about Israel, we look at Israeli deception. We look at American pragmatism. All of this is centered around deception and evil. They are not the faithful and wise steward. But who within the Lord, who is he going to make ruler over his household? So that faithful steward is going to have to understand the precepts. He's going to have to understand the testimony that the world can be ruled in righteousness. And this is confusing for a lot of people because within religion, they've given another understanding. They're teaching a different doctrine, that of seducing spirits and that doctrine of devils. Devils meaning a doctrine of deception. But to be a ruler over the world, to be a faithful steward, you must do it according to the commandments. Oh, what commandments? What are you talking about? Because within Catholicism, within Christianity, and within Judaism, they don't deal with the commandments. They make things up. They deal with the traditions of men passed off as commandments, as you deal with the policies and procedures within world politics. That's what a number of you live your life according to. That's what the heads of state go by. The heads of state do not go by the commandments of righteousness. They make up the things that benefit them as men. You know what I'm saying is truth. Thank you all for coming into the live. But someone's going to be made a ruler over the entire world. But right now, the world is in the hand of the wicked. And we're watching that world come to a collapse. And when that world collapses, when that world folds, then the world of righteousness can then come into position and or place. Do you think the world coming is going to be standard and or functioning as the world today? No, it can't. It won't survive. In order for the world to heal, in order for us to have clean air, clean food, pure water, we have to be functioning on a higher standard of principles. Whom shall his Lord make ruler over his household, to give him their portion of meat in due season. Meaning, those that are now under the rule of the wicked, a transition is going to take place and they will be in position to rule the world in that due season. Oh, but right now, it just seems insurmountable. But if we meditate on the testimony, we come to understand this is just short-lived. And this is what would make you wiser than all of your teachers that have taught you through the carnal traditions, customs, through their precepts. 43, it says, blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he come, shall find so doing. See, these are things that we have to do within the concept right now, rehearsing the righteous acts. Thank you all for coming into the live. Rehearsing the righteous acts, you all, doing. And again, within that Catholicism and Christianity, they tell you there's nothing to do. But if you meditate on these writings, if you meditate on these precepts, it's consistently expressing that we need to be active. But within the deception of the religion, they say there's nothing to do. Just say you believe in Jesus and that's just going to handle everything. Number 44. He says, of a truth, I say unto you, that he will make him ruler over all that he hath. So who is he going to make ruler over all that he hath? The one that just says, I believe in Jesus? Or the one that is out there doing according to his precepts? The one that meditates on the testimonies. Is the faithful servant the one that says, I just believe in Jesus? Or the one that meditates on the testimonies, that looks to live according to the precepts, that's rehearsing the righteous acts? The one that when he comes, he finds him doing these things outside of just saying, I believe. The man that says, I believe, is like the man that took the 1 talent and kept it in the napkin and ain't do nothing with it. He told him, get away from me, you wicked servant. Proverbs 10:7. The memory of the just is blessed, but the name of the wicked shall rot. So all of what's happening within the world today, you all, it's just going to pass away. It's going to rot. But righteousness will be sustained. So you all can argue with this, or you can deny this, or you can turn away from this, because it means that you have to correct yourself. You have to change. Then you don't want anything to do with it from that standpoint. But the memory of the just is blessed. So we're going to keep that in mind as we're understanding who is this faithful servant. The one that he come and he find him doing a thing, not the one that he come and he sit there and say, I believed, I just believe. Number 8, it says, the wise in heart will receive commandments. So the wise in heart will receive the commandments. The foolish in heart is going to reject these commandments. Somebody right now is saying, oh, that's the Old Testament. As if the New Testament says something different. But it does not. Both the old and the new have to align perfectly in order for the consistency of the word to continue. But because a number of you are just corrupt within your heart, and you don't want to adhere or restrict yourself to a discipline, it's just easier for you to live within the lies of the religion and try to find some way to ignore it because you are that wicked servant. The wise in heart will receive commandments, but the prating fool shall fall. So the wise in heart is going to receive the commandments. The prating fool, shall fall. The memory of the just is blessed. But the name of the wicked shall rot. So what's the name of the wicked? Because we fall over this a whole lot as we get into the name. Yahweh Shai, Yahuwah, Jesus, God, Lord. We get into the name. So what is the name for the wicked? And this is why I've pointed out to you as we focus on the allegory, the hidden meaning, because a number of you are trying to read these things face on, literally, and you're missing the understanding. So today we're focused on that hidden meaning. What is the name of the wicked? The name of the wicked, you all, would be tied to the policies and the procedures. Those are the words that are used in corruption. That's the name of the wicked. The policies, the procedures. That law that they use to govern by. And when we talk about the name of God, it's according to his law, his policies, his procedures that we should be ruled and governed by. Not just saying Jesus, or not just saying, a devil or the Satan. Those are identifying markers, but the thing that we must go by is that standard. One is going to be either of corruption, the other will be of righteousness. So the name of the wicked is centered around the policies and the procedures. So we go to Revelations 13 and 19, because he said in Proverbs 10:7, the wise in heart will receive commandments. Revelations 13:19, it tells you his name is called the Word of God. Dealing with allegory, hidden meaning. His name is called the Word of God as we go back and we look at the name of the wicked. So for his name to be called the Word of God, it's talking about his commandments that you should receive, and that when he comes, you should be found doing them, not just talking about them, but looking to understand what it means to rehearse these things in your life as you meditate on the testimonies, as you meditate on the precepts. That's his name. It's in his commandments. Now you can get all tripped up and stick with the fact of Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahshua, Jesus, whatever. But to make it practical, that you can have something that you'll live by, something that you can stand on, his name is called the Word of God. Looking at the commandments, these are the things that you must live by. This is what would make you a faithful steward. as we're focused on the truth about the real Israel, looking at this Israeli deception because they don't live according to these commandments. Their precepts, their laws, their policies, and their procedures, all these things are different. Thank you all for coming into the live. I'll just tell you, share the live and repost the live, and you can tap the screen, right, to show your support for the live. That part don't cost anything. Isaiah 42 and 21. He said, the Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. So how do we identify his righteousness' sake if we toss the commandments out the window, as they tell us to do within Christianity? They say you don't need them no more. All you need is Jesus. Just believe on Jesus. You have to do more than just believe, as he just said, so that when he comes, he shall find you doing a thing. Not just standing there uttering, chanting, I believe you. He didn't say when you meditate to just chant Jesus and just think of Jesus. He said meditate on the testimony. He said if you're not dealing according to the law and the testimony, he said there's no light in you. So how do they come within these precepts of men and now tell you, don't worry about that? Thank you all for coming. The Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. His righteousness' sake is tied to his name. And his name is in the commandments. That is the thing you must do so that when he come, he see you in his name. He will magnify the law and make it honorable, because right now it's not visible. It's not honorable. But for the world to be healed, as you all love to talk about world peace, but when it comes down to understanding that this is the remedy for world peace, y'all get turned off. And you want something else to be an understanding for world peace. But this is it. A standard of righteousness. That's the antidote for world peace. Nothing else. Psalms 138 and 2. He says, I will worship toward thy holy temple and praise thy name for thy loving kindness. And again, when we're talking about praising thy name for thy loving kindness, again, to praise the name would be in the action according to how we follow the commandments. That's how you give praise, through your actions. Otherwise, it's just a vain praise. You're just vainly praising something because you don't honor it. You're just giving lip service to it. And praise thy name for thy loving kindness, meaning within this law, within these testimonies, the loving kindness is in the fact that we too are corrupt, have been corrupt, but through this law, through these commandments, we can be cleaned up. That's the loving kindness. We have a way out. But we have to put it in practice. Thank you all for coming. He says, and praise thy name for thy loving kindness and for thy truth. The truth is in the righteousness, you all. Oh, I know this is boring. I know this is upsetting. I know this is not as entertaining as a number of the other rooms that are on this platform where you just get to emotionally charge and just say whatever. I know. But here, we're looking to deal with salvaging our souls, realizing his loving kindness has made a way for us to get out. But dealing with pragmatism, dealing with the precepts of men, and for what they've taught us in this world today, we won't see the loving kindness. And some of you think loving kindness is centered around how much money you have. And these are all philosophies and ideologies of fools, not knowing the difference between the knowledge of righteousness and the knowledge within wickedness. He says, for thy loving kindness and for thy truth, for thou hast magnified thy word above all thy name. And this is where I'm explaining that hidden meaning part as asking you all not to focus on the name being Jesus or Yahweh or Yahusha or Yahawashai, but focus on the name being his commandment, his law, his rule. And that being the thing, when he come, if he see you doing it, you will be honored within the scope of salvation. Because if he come and he don't see you doing it, then you'll receive the reward of the wicked, because by default, you're doing the corruption. Your meditations are focused on the deception. And all of your intent to want to do right, you're in the wrong place. And there will be no excuse. So this is an opportunity to hear, to pivot, and make a correction for yourself, not based on religion, but based on understanding there's a code, there's a conduct, there's a thing that you must rehearse in order to make yourself a better person, to stand for righteousness. Thank you all for coming into the live. I say you tap the screen. That part don't cost anything. That's how you show your support for the live. You share the live and you repost the live. So when he says, for thou hast magnified thy word above all thy name, above all thy name is looking at all these things that have been named throughout the world. He's saying his law, his word is above all of that. Look at anything that has been named. He's magnified his word above all that has been named. Because within that law, within that commandment, within those testimonies, you'll actually find the true meaning of his name. Outside of that, you're just dealing with the pragmatism. You're dealing with philosophy and vain deceit. You're dealing with the precepts of men, the lies that they've taught within their institutions, within their seminary schools. Helping to maintain and support their corrupt system. Exodus 18 and 20. Because we're looking at how he magnified his word above all that is named, and how his name is the word of God, and coming to understand this is not focused on saying Yahweh or Jesus, but this is focused on the action behind how you live according to the commandments, even as we're looking at who is that faithful servant. Is it the one that just says, I believe in Jesus? Or the one that actually go and follow the example that Jesus left to do it, that you would sin no more? They throw that part out of the window. To hell with the example that he left. Let's just say we did it by saying we just believe. And that's going to magically remove corruption out of our life, when the concept of the commandment, the concept of the discipline, the concept behind the precepts, these are the things that convert our soul, not the religion, not Judaism, not Christianity, not Catholicism. He said the law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. To convert your soul, we have to focus on the commandment, the precepts. And again, they tell you, oh, we ain't got to deal with that. Because in the religion, they said Jesus came and somehow, now there's no commandment. There's nothing to follow. There's nothing to do. But yet, you allow yourself to continue living according to American pragmatism, according to their policies, according to their procedures, according to the mischief in the law that they've created. You don't say nothing about that. You embrace it. It's because you are that wicked servant. Exodus 18:20. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws. This is how we understand what righteousness is, to be that faithful servant, to be that righteous steward. According to the ordinances and laws. Right now, the ordinances and laws that we've been taught, they're corrupt. They have to be replaced. It's amazing. You all accept the corrupt ordinances and laws, but when we talk about removing them to replace them with these ordinances and laws, you say, no, 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 no. No. And that's because you are that wicked servant. Teach them ordinances and laws, and shall show them the way wherein they must walk, which he said that the way that they must walk, which goes back to the point in the Proverbs where he said when he come, he's looking for the one that is going to be doing the thing. See how it consistently lines up, and how the doctrines within the religions don't match this. And they just tell you, oh, don't worry about that. That's old. Those are seducing spirits. They're peddling a doctrine of devils. The healing for us is in righteousness, as we're dying every day. Everything around us is in decay, polluted, destruction, disease. That's all because we're living according to their laws, their precepts, their policies, their procedures. And we've abandoned those of righteousness. We've accepted a wicked religion that tells us to forbade the word of God, deny it. Teach them ordinances and laws. Show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work they must do. Something about that work that just piss a lot of people off, especially within the religion. They don't want to do no work. They don't want to do don't talk to them about doing no work. He says, moreover, Thou shalt provide out of all the people able men. See, now we're getting down to who's that faithful servant and righteous steward. It would be those that understand the laws and the ordinances. Because now it has to be taught to certain men. People now have to live their lives according to these laws and these ordinances, to be that faithful, to be that righteous steward, meaning the one that's going to take care of the world and govern about people rightly. Without it, it's just injustice. And we see it running rampant throughout the world. As I'm talking to you about the antidote. But the antidote doesn't work itself. You have to bring your aptitude into wanting to understand how to apply these things in your life, meaning become the change that you want to see. Stop waiting for the world outside of you to change and start fixing the world inside of yourself. That introspection that you can salvage your soul. He says, able men, such as fear God, meaning such as understand the ordinances and the laws, the testimonies, and they respect it. They won't tread on it. They won't trample on it. They won't toss it behind their back. They won't accept $1 million bribe. They won't turn a blind eye to have an advantage over the next man. Men of truth. I haven't seen one of those in a long time. They're far few and in between because we're all polluted. And we're getting that pollution up out of us. We're coughing it up like that phlegm. That we can wholly be men of truth. That's what we're looking for. Thank you all for coming into the live, you all. Say tap the screen. It don't cost nothing. Right? Men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands. See, that's the righteous and faithful steward that will be rulers in the world over thousands. Right now, you have those that are rulers over the corruption and those that are stewards within wickedness. They're ruling over thousands. And look at what they use to do it. Look at what they're using to do it as a number of you are turned off. Because someone is saying, check yourself. Because someone is not trying to stimulate your mind based on folly. Engage you in entertainment. You're sad. You're mad. You're looking to be thrilled otherwise. You're looking for gossip. You're looking for vain discussion. You're looking for a way to release your emotions. When these are all the things that have us in the thick and or the mess that we're in. You say you want a solution. You say you want it to stop. But you won't stop yourself. Thank you all for coming into the live. You can share the live, repost the live. But that's how you find that faithful, right? That righteous steward. He has to be doing that within the laws and the commandments. He has to be taught those things. Then he would be put over thousands. He would be put over hundreds, 50, tens, fives. That's what rulership looks like. Right now, it's the other way around through corruption. And this is what we want to end. So we have to replace the standards, you all. It's just that simple. But you haven't brought yourself to understand what these standards are, and they've made certain to bury these standards and understandings that you would never or have a very hard time finding it and or comprehending it. No freaking way would they teach this in their institutions. It would be their downfall. Luke 19 and 15. And it shall come to pass that when he was returned, because we're still talking about that faithful and that righteous steward, like, how do you understand who this is? And we're dealing with allegory as we're pointing out the truth about the real Israel, understanding it's still a people that's out there. And it's not the Israelis that are dealing in deception. It's not them. But who is this faithful and this righteous steward that will bring the world back to its rightful position and or place, and first of all, heal? Right now, everything, including the earth, needs to heal from all of this devastation through the unrighteousness, from the wicked. They must be stopped. Do you think your munitions can stop them? Well, they create some of the best munitions in the world. You can't get ahead or an advantage over them with that. That's their world. That's how they function. Their kryptonite is righteousness. The laws, the standards, the ordinances, they know it. And they know that our kryptonite is going against it. That's why we're powerless. And that's why we're not organized. Because we fail to want to organize around a right standing within laws and ordinances. We want to keep trying to add how they've accomplished or how they've positioned things and add that to our business and the things that we do and think that's how we're going to have change. Change is going to be through a total separation within understanding your points in discipline, how you govern, how you rule, how you execute, how you interact with each other based on a standard. Because right now, we're doing it based on their standards, their laws, policies, procedures, and all of it's corrupt. And it came to pass, Luke 19:15, for those of you that say, go to the New Testament. We go through all of the Testament, Old and New, and show how it's all consistent. And we're focused on the allegory, the hidden meaning, because think about this. If it tells you there's a mystery to God, meaning a secret within the law, what makes you think you're just going to pick it up and, get it on its face? It's good that you can read it. But the deepness within the truth is in being able to understand the secret. Very few people are truly dealing with it from that standpoint because the majority have been engulfed within the indoctrination of the religion. And it's hard for them to hear and or understand these points of truth. They're tied into the pragmatism, the American way. And it came to pass, Luke 19:15, that when he was returned, remember he said when he come back, who will he find doing? Having received the kingdom, meaning now the world is going to be positioned in righteousness, away from the corruption. He returns. Having received the kingdom, then he commanded these servants to be called unto him. Going back to them servants, whom he had given the money. This is a parable. And we're going into the hidden meaning, coming to understand that when he returned, you have to be seen doing something. You can't be the one that just say, I believe. When he returned, having received the kingdom, he's looking for a servant. He's calling for his servants. And he's looking to see what they did. Who had been given the money that he might know how much every man had gained by trading. This is just a parable. I'm showing you the hidden meaning, talking about how did you change your behavior? How did you come to the standards of righteousness and apply them to your life outside of just saying, I believe? Because you're going to find the one that just says, I believe is going to be the one at the end of this parable who put it in a napkin and he called him a wicked servant because he didn't do nothing. He didn't use the testimony. He didn't use the law. He didn't find that it would be the thing to convert his soul. He just said, I believed, and I was living according to the pragmatism, and I was just waiting for you to get here. Now I'm ready now. He said, get away from me, you wicked servant. But through this parable in Luke 19:15, when you read it, you'll come to find that these stewards, those that did the work, he granted them rulership. But the one that did nothing, he cast him away from him. So let me read as I've explained what that parable is. So I'm going to read to where you see where he rewards one rulership, over a particular city. And that's what we're talking about when you talk about that faithful, that righteous steward. It has to be someone that's living according to the testimony, the commandments, that will not toss them behind their back. Because when the world is repositioned, none of what we live by and or know today will be a part of it. And that's hard for a lot of you because you love this chaos, even though it's making you sick. So he called them unto him, to whom he had given the money, to see what every man made by trading. Then came the first, saying, Lord, the pound have gained 10 pounds. And he said unto him, well, thou good servant. See, this was one, talking about the parable, giving you the understanding within that hidden meaning. This was the one when he came back, he found him doing and or living within the ordinances. He didn't just sit on it. He called him the good servant. So this is the one that will be the faithful and righteous steward. Because thou hast been faithful in a very little, have thou authority over 10 cities. This is what we're getting into as we're coming to understand who is going to rule within righteousness. Wanting to know who is that faithful and righteous steward when nobody today of none of these nations will be acknowledged and or honored. They're all going to be destroyed. They're all going to be taken down, including your beloved America. It's heartbreaking for a number of you, but it's not going to be made great again, and God is not going to bless it. So as you go on through that parable, you find that each one that was seen to have been doing the work, they were considered faithful. But when you get down to that last one, he says, and another came saying, Lord, behold, here is thy pound, which I have had laid up in a napkin. And that was the one he called a wicked servant, and he didn't give him no power. He didn't give him no authority. So for all of you that just say you believe, to understand the allegory, the hidden meaning, the secret within this parable, it's saying when the return of righteousness come, for those of you that have settled within the vain precepts of your religion, Christianity, Catholicism, and or Judaism, you're going to be in for an upset. Because you're not living or applying according to the testimony, according to the law, according to the statutes, as it's said over and over. This is where righteousness and the truth is. You rather rely on American pragmatism. You rather live according to their policies, their procedures, the mischief within their law tied to statutes and acts. And you think you're going to be given salvation and or protected in the time of their calamity after you've rejected the truth. Thank you all for coming into the live. I tell you, tap the screen. That part don't cost nothing. That's how you show your support for the live. Do share the live and repost the live, you all. You can repost it to your stories as well. So, Revelation 2:26, he says, and he that overcome and keep the works. Now, again, we're in the New Testament because a number of you like to say, oh, you was in the Old Testament. But here in the New Testament, he's talking about keeping the works. And then they say, oh, don't worry about that. Just believe in Jesus. You all better realize they're teaching another doctrine. They've been overcome by seducing spirits. They're pandering to unrighteousness. And he that overcome what? Corruption, wickedness. How do you overcome wickedness? You must apply the commandments. The commandments are for righteousness. Their commandments are for wickedness. Their commandments are knowledge in wickedness. These commandments are knowledge in righteousness. It's just that simple. You have to trade one in for another. Don't you want to upgrade? And he that overcome and keep thy works until the end. As he said, when he come, he want to see who was doing it. Not the one that just said, I believe. He will give him power over the nations. Remember? He said for this one that took the £1 and turned it into 10, he said, for little that you've done, he said, I'm going to give you authority over 10 cities. Remember, Moses told him to teach the men ordinances and laws that they can then be rulers over the other men. This is the standard, but you reject it to maintain American pragmatism, to maintain Israeli deception, to continue living according to their policies and their procedures within a mischief within law. But you want to uphold it as being right, something to live your life by, to teach your children to be evil, to be wicked. Oh, no, it's not that. That's exactly what it is, because we haven't been taught to teach our children according to a proper standard. But he said, if you keep his work until the end, he's going to give you power over the nations. Mark 13:13. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, not namesake as in Jesus or Yahweh or Yahweh. We talked about that already. I'm not focused on that from the standpoint of the religion, you all. We're dealing with the hidden meaning. What is this saying? You're not hated just because you say Jesus. I mean, so many folk today are saying Jesus and they're just loved for it. That's not what it's talking about. On its face, you might get that. But let's go to the hidden meaning, meaning the secret, which they don't teach in the seminary schools. Your bishop or your pastor is not going to hoop and holler. The band is not going to play behind this. He says, and ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. Remember what we said the name was? It's his word. And his word is tied to the statutes, the commandments. You start talking about the statutes and commandments, then you're hated. Even in Christianity. Start talking about the statutes and the commandments within Christianity and living according to that. That's when you become hated. Start talking about the statutes and the commandments or the laws and the testimonies and restricting yourself to righteousness, and watch you get rejected. Make that be the standard and or the discipline for everyone, and watch you get tossed out on your head. As he said, his name is the word of God. As we talk about the secret part, getting away from the indoctrination of the religion. His name, Jesus, Yahweh, Yahweh. All of that is vain if you're not doing the work. You don't know his name. There's a whole lot of Jesus out here. You were rejected, you will be hated of all men for my name's sake. See, it makes more sense now when you associate it to the testimony, to the laws, to the statutes, because that's what you're being hated for. Because in that, you're turning their world upside down. You're trying to dethrone them by interjecting righteousness, a new standard, because their standard is corruption, wickedness, unrighteousness. And you want to change that? They have power, they have authority, they have rule, and you want to come in and change that? You're hated. He said, you'll be hated of all men for my name's sake. He said, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. That's just another way of saying he's going to give power to the one that overcome. That's just another way of saying, the faithful servant took little, made a gain, and he said, for that, I'm going to give you authority over 10 cities. It's just saying for those in this world today that can identify the difference between an unrighteous standard and a righteous standard and choose the righteous standard and do everything within their power to resist the unrighteous standard, because we've all been hit by unrighteousness. It's in all of us, and we fight to get it out of us, some of us at least. But the only thing that will keep us successful is dealing with the right standard in righteousness. Where do you find it? It's in his testimony. It's in his statutes. It's in his laws. As he keeps saying, teach them the laws, the statutes, the commandments, the testimony. Isaiah 8:20, he said, to the law and to the testimony. If they do not speak, if you're not teaching according to that, if you're not speaking that, he says, there's no light, there's no truth in you. Exodus 18 and 19, he says, hearken now unto my voice. I will give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. I will give thee counsel, and the law shall be with thee. The law is the God. That's the thing you're going to serve. I know that word God messes up a lot of people. Some have even associated it to be a name. But if we're dealing with the hidden meaning to make it applicable in our life, he says, and God shall be with you. It's the law that's going to be with you. It's the standard that's going to be with you. It's the discipline that you're going to carry with you. Thank you all for coming into the live. You can share the live, repost the live, share it with your stories. Show your support for the live by tapping the screen. That part don't cost nothing. And God shall be with thee. Now, it don't make sense, and God should be with thee, that you think another man or another entity is just going to be standing by your side. See, that's a part of the indoctrination, how they've screwed with our imagination. As I told you, they've given us our monsters, our aliens, and our gods. And they've made us draw to conclusions that are not even there. So we have to undo all of that we can exercise our senses beyond the carnal behavior and or need to taste something, to smell something, to see something, but to see beyond into a spiritual realm, to know what a thing is, that we can be uplifted in righteousness. And God shall be with thee. He says, be thou for the people to Godward. Be thou for the people to Godward, meaning teach them that law, those commandments, because those are the things that will hold them within salvation, that thou may bring the cause unto God. Because when you bring the cause, you don't take it to God, you take it to the law. You take it to the standard, the principle, because that's the thing that's going to judge the situation. No different than when you go to their court. You're taking it to their law. And if you're not understanding what I'm saying, because in that sense, that's what you're serving, as I'm telling you. Your God is in what you serve. And if you're serving their law, then that's your God. But if you transition, then God shall be with you within righteousness, because you're now living according to his standard, his policy, his procedure. Thank you all for coming. As I said in Isaiah 8:20, it said, to the law, to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it's because there's no light in them. If you're not telling people to follow God according to law, statute, testimony, you're lying. You're misleading. You're dealing with sheer indoctrination. Isaiah 54:17. I pulled this one up because as we're talking about that law and how it is the God that we serve and how that brings us to righteousness and how that will salvage our soul. In this one, it says, no weapon formed against thee shall prosper. See, in the religion, they walk around and they say that. And they speak to it so vainly. Because in order for no weapon to form against that, no weapon that was formed, that it will harm you, you have to be living according to the standards of righteousness. You can't say this and think you're going to get the benefit of it just because you say, I believe in Jesus. Now, you can say it all day within a vain standard or sense, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. But what this is really talking about, you all, is saying when the world is moved and righteousness is put in place over corruption, and the faithful servant is in position and or place, as some of us will be transitioned. And I'm going to show you what the transition is as we will move from this terrestrial flesh to a celestial flesh, and we will be changed. And in that sense of righteousness, then from the change, because right now, you can say no weapon formed against me is going to prosper, and somebody come and put a projectile in your head, and it's over. But when we're transformed, at that point, none of their munitions, because as I said to you, that's their wheelhouse, that's their power. We're not going to overcome them by trying to have a bigger weapon. Our weapon has to be righteousness. Through the transformation of righteousness, nothing. To receive the celestial form, nothing they have will prosper. None of their munitions. Let me finish. No weapon formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. Meaning, nobody can then come and talk about American pragmatism. Once righteousness is in position and or place, they can't come now talking about this American pragmatism or, their policies and their procedures and international law and all these other things centered around their way of deception. All of that is over. It's done. He said, this is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, not the religion. I told you all we don't deal with religion. Within the law, it did not give you a religion. There's a heritage. Man created religion and made you comfortable with it. And even though I'm reading it to you and giving you the understanding, a number of you just reject it because you're that wicked servant. You want to believe the lies. You're upset that I'm not up here lying to you, making it sound fly to you. You want to be entertained. This is the heritage of the servants. So the heritage of the servants, you all, is in righteousness. Teach them the laws and the standards. Let them go meditate on the testimony. That's the heritage of the righteous. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Now, who are we talking about? Because they'll try to tell you, oh, that's anybody. Anybody that says, I believe in Jesus, then they're the servant. If you say you believe in Jesus and Christianity, then you're the servant of the Lord, miraculously. But we want to understand better, because these writings, as we look at the truth about the real Israel and pointing out the Israeli deception and the American pragmatism and the indoctrination, this wicked imagination that they've cast over the entire world, how we tear it down is in righteousness. And not everybody is set for this change. The heritage is of the servant of the Lord, of their righteousness. He said, of their righteousness is of me. Of their righteousness is of me, saith the Lord. That means in order for you to have the righteousness, you have to follow his commandment, his statute, his policy, his procedures, his law, not their standard, not their policy, not their practices, not their procedures, not their statutes, not their law, and try to make it the way of life. Their way of life is to the law of death. His way of life to righteousness is tied to a law of life. Their way within the law of death is destroying the world. And right now, we're trying to overcome what they call global warming and climate change. We're trying to overcome disease and pestilence and famine and, the corruption and the wars. And the only way we can do this is through an overhaul. Righteousness has to come in, but when righteousness comes in, it dethrones the unrighteous. So they say to hell with that. We just gonna ride and we just gonna roll until we come to a grinding stop. And everybody that's in our vehicle, then they're all going to go down and or receive the reward of the wicked for being in that vehicle. First Corinthians 15 and 39, because I explain when you talk about no weapon formed against me shall prosper, I was saying that doesn't apply to right now because we're all in this terrestrial flesh. But in the writings, it talks about a change in flesh, and it tells you about the different types of flesh and how we have to go through the transition. But in order to be, or shall I say, to make the cut, you can't make the cut living through American pragmatism and their policies and their procedures and their way of life and their law and think that's going to gain or give you access to a change. There's no change in their standard of living. A change would be to righteousness, identifying it by a standard, a system of laws, a way of life. Oh, but y'all don't like that way of life because a number of you are addicted to the corruption. You're addicted to the devastation. Some of you don't even know it. Some are truly in the process of weaning themselves off of or away from the addiction. As we talk about the truth about the real Israel and focused on this Israeli deception and the American pragmatism, the world theater that they've put before us, the imagination that they've cast, this political theater. And for a number of you, it suits and fits you just right because the entertainment doesn't stop. It's 24/7. They're giving it to you however much you want. But 1 Corinthians 15:39, it says, all flesh is not the same flesh. There is one kind of flesh of men, another flesh of beasts, another of fish, another of birds. So there are different types of flesh. But now look, now we're going to see that there's even another type of flesh. And to obtain that flesh is when you can say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. If you don't have that flesh, you can't say no weapon formed against you will prosper. And it doesn't matter how much of the indoctrination you have in you to say, oh, I just believe in Jesus. Until you receive this flesh, every weapon they have against you will prosper. "40 says, there are also celestial bodies. So there's a flesh for the celestial body. He said, and bodies terrestrial. So that's the flesh we have right here today. This is the terrestrial flesh. We don't know nothing about the celestial flesh. But that's the transition. For some, in hopes of righteousness, you'll receive the celestial flesh. He said, but the glory of the celestial is one, meaning one type of flesh. And the glory of the terrestrial is another. Two types of flesh when it comes to man and the transition. When it comes to the vibration of the world changing from the terrestrial side to the celestial side. Only through the celestial side can there be righteousness. There's no corruption in the celestial flesh. In this flesh right here, it's corrupt. There's corruption. There's weakness. And every weapon they have, if they formed, and should they use it against you, it will prosper. So in order for that verse to be true, in order for us to understand it in its correct sense and tense, its meaning, we have to have transformed. It's not for you to take it in vain in hopes of promoting your religion. We're not talking about a religion. He's dealing with the heritage of his servant, as we just read. But y'all want to push the religion because that's what you're indoctrinated with. And you're mad because I'm not promoting it and because I'm tearing it down. The truth is bitter. 1 Corinthians 15 and 50. He says, I say, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. So, that's saying, as long as we're in this flesh, the terrestrial flesh, we'll never have the truth, full truth. We will not be able to stand totally in righteousness in this corruption. It has to be knocked down. It has to be moved out of the way. We can't inherit the celestial flesh and have this flesh. The kingdom of God is through the celestial flesh and righteousness. That's where all truth will be encompassed. As I've said, through the celestial flesh, what they tell you, oh, we only use a small fraction and or percentage of our brain. But through the transition, we'll have full access to all knowledge in knowing all things because we'll be heirs. But in this body, we're decaying every day. The full truth and knowledge can't reside in decay. So we have knowledge in part, and we're being challenged to use that knowledge in part, to do the work, to rehearse the righteous act, so that upon returning, you may be acknowledged and given that celestial flesh to then regain all knowledge in righteousness. Otherwise, you've allowed yourself to be subdued by the ways of the corruption and the unrighteous, and you will lose out on the transformation. I say then, brethren, that flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom of God. Neither do corruption inherit incorruption. This flesh will not stand along with the celestial flesh. The terrestrial flesh will not stand with one gotta go. Which one do you want? In order to receive the celestial flesh, you have to be working within a standard and or principle, the higher vibration that y'all talk about. You just don't want to associate it with discipline. You just want to talk about it. And just say it, oh, the higher vibration. I'm on a higher vibration. And you just want to say it, but when it comes to actually doing it, you don't want to do it. He says, behold, I show you a mystery, as we talk about 1 Corinthians 5 and 50. Behold, I show you a mystery. Mystery means a secret. I'm going to show you this secret. This is what we talk about. Understanding the allegory, the hidden meaning, because you can read this on its face and never get the understanding and or know what you have to do to pivot, to change your way. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed. We shall not all stay in this terrestrial flesh. Some will be changed to the celestial flesh. He says, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye, when he returns, it will already be gathered and or factored. Who is and who isn't in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. And this is why he said, if they come and say he's over here, he's over there, he said, believe it not. Because it's going to happen in a twinkling of an eye, you all. You won't have time to say over here, over there. If you got time to say over here and over there, then the twinkling of an eye hadn't taken place. If they could fool the elect, then they would. But for it to happen within a twinkling of an eye, you won't have time. It's going to happen. Even unbeknownst to you that you've been chosen. Because none of us can truly say that we know this or know that based on who is and who ain't. We can only hope based on the work that we do that we would be accepted. But in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump, for the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, meaning at that time, those that are in this terrestrial flesh, they're going to be raised and put into the celestial flesh. That's incorruptible. That's without transgression, without sin. That's embodying the full sense of knowledge and truth, knowing all things. They say, we can't know all things. Of course we will, because we are heirs. And to be an heir, he says, we're going to receive and or have the same thing. There's no monopoly on knowing the total truth and or all things. It's to your benefit. That's how you not make a mistake. It's because of the indoctrination that a number of you can't comprehend what's being said. And you're going through that sense of cognitive dissonance. You're wrestling with it. But hopefully you stick with introspection. And you use these things to uplift yourself. The dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. From what to what? We shall be changed from the terrestrial flesh to the celestial flesh, the higher vibration. Knowing all things. God's on earth. Healing the world. Ruling the world in righteousness. Why y'all mad? Look at what they're doing in wickedness. Look at how they're destroying the world. You should hope that something happens and or a change come to where righteousness can come into place. Are you mad because it doesn't subscribe to your religion? Throw your religion in the trash. We're talking about the heritage of a people, the truth about Israel, the Israeli deception, and that the real children of Israel, they're still out there, scattered abroad. But they will be gathered, and they will be put in their place, in their rest, and they will be used for righteousness, not the corruption of the imposters within the Israeli deception. He says in 53, for this corruptible must put on incorruption. This flesh right here must fall, and we must put on incorruption, the celestial flesh. Not everybody, but those that upon returning he find are doing the work. Those that are rehearsing the righteous act. Not the ones that are just saying, I believe in Jesus. Or chanting Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. Those that are living according to the precepts and the traditions of men. Not those, not you, but those that are focused and meditating on the testimony. Focused on his statutes, his commandments, his policies, his procedures. Learning to replace those and remove the corrupt standards that we've been given based on society standards. Thank you all for coming into the live. Daniel 7 and 27. And the kingdom and dominion, meaning the entire world, and the greatness of the kingdom under the whole heaven, the entire world, shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. Talking about that faithful servant. Talking about that heritage of a people. In the religion, again, they say that's everybody. That's anybody that says, I believe in Jesus. Well, let's focus on the writing and see outside of your flawed religion what's really being discussed. As we've pointed out, the book doesn't talk about a religion. It talks about a heritage. We've read that part. The heritage of the servant in righteousness, not the religion of the servant. It's different, but you want to conflate that too, a number of you. But it shall be given to the saints of the Most High. Who are the saints? As we talk about the truth, about the real Israel, not the Israeli deception, but the fact that there's a people still out there in the diaspora, scattered abroad, powerless. And in order for you to clean up, in order for you to rebound, you got to focus on these standards, not their standards. As long as you focus on their standards, you'll continue to feed the addiction. Your strength is in the law of life. That's your remedy to get you off of the addiction, to pull you away from the corruption. That's your healing medicine. That is the thing that will fix your mind. And it will be given to the saints of the Most High, whose kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. Righteousness is an everlasting kingdom. Thank you all for coming into the live. Righteousness is an everlasting kingdom, you all. He says, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. Meaning the rest of the world is going to be ruled under the laws, under the commandments, under the policies, the procedures, the practices, the rules the standards of this law. No different than right now, we're being ruled under a corrupt and a wicked law. Policies and procedures and practices, and you all seem to be fine with that. Well, according to this, just like a change is going to come within the terrestrial flesh to the celestial flesh, in order for that to happen, that means a change has to come within the standard of how the world is being ruled. Their standard and their way will no longer be the way. It's not a part of that everlasting kingdom, that everlasting dominion. In fact, it says they're going to come down and they're going to serve within righteousness according to those that are the saints of the Most High. Now we got to find out who are the saints, because the lying religion says the saints, that's everybody. He says, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. They're going to serve and obey the laws, the statutes, the commandments. That's what they're going to serve and obey, but it's going to be under the rulership of the faithful and righteous steward, his saints that are heirs in righteousness. And if you don't want to serve in that manner, then look at what he say gonna happen to you. Oh, but first, let's find out who the saints are, so we can clear it up to where they can't lie to you in Christianity and say, oh, it's just anybody who say they believe in Jesus. If you say you believe in Jesus, then you're going to be a saint. The writing does not align with that. That's why the precept, Isaiah 8:20, he says, if they're not speaking according to the law and the testimony, he said they're lying. There's no light in them. There's no truth in them. So to tell somebody that you're a saint just because you say you believe in Jesus, that's a lie. But this is what the writing says. In Psalms 148:13, he says, let them praise the name of the Lord. Let them do the work within the law. Praise means acknowledge. Not to just say Jesus, 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 because y'all have taken praise to be a mantra. Hercules, Hercules, Hercules. But when you praise, it's based on your action. As he said, when he come, he's looking to see who's doing it. That's how you give praise, through doing it. Anyway, let them praise the name of the Lord, because you remember, the name is the law. The name is the word. As he said, his name is the word of God. We went through that. So you have to praise the name, the law, the standard, the statute. You have to do that. Let them praise the name of the Lord. For his name alone is excellent, meaning the law is perfect. The law of the Lord is perfect. That's excellence. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. His name alone is excellent. It's not talking about, oh, Jesus, Yahweh, Yahweh Shai. Dealing with the hidden meaning is talking about his standard, the thing that we must apply to our life to overcome, that we may be found worthy to receive the celestial flesh. His name alone is excellent. His glory, his fame is above the earth and heaven. It's above all things, above the earth and heaven. He also exalts the horn of his people. Who are these saints? Who are his people? In Christianity, they say it's anybody that says, I believe in Jesus. And they even came up with a spiritual Israel. But we're talking about the truth, about the real Israel, not the Israeli deception, not the lies that you've learned within Catholicism, Christianity, and Judaism. All those things were made by men. Throw them in the trash. He also exalt the horn of his people, meaning the strength of his people. The praise of all his saints. Now, this is where we get the clarifying part as to who they are. Because some of you are still arguing based on the indoctrination of the religion, and you're saying you don't give a damn. You're going to stick with the lies of the religion. You're not going to take the advice of true words and change that you may be set for salvation. You're going to keep running with the deception. You're going to continue being that seducing spirit and trying to convince as many people as you can to keep living a lie. But look who his saints are. The praise of all his saints, even the children of Israel. And we're not talking about Israeli deception and Netanyahu and them, because they're not the real children. But the real children, they're still out there. Even the children of Israel. He says, a people near unto him. Praise ye the Lord, meaning you see it in the law. It's written. But y'all want to make that praise ye the Lord. Y'all just want to make it something so ethereal. But no, praise ye the Lord is like, look at it and read it. You see it. You can give thanks to the fact that it's written. It's in stone. But that's not good enough for a number of you. You want to change it because the religion have set you in a different position. You have inherited lies through the religion. And you cool with that. But his saints, I just told you who they are. The faithful servant based on the heritage, it just told you who they are. And we're not talking about the Israeli deception. We're not talking about those that call themselves Jews but are not. We're not talking about those that have come about to hijack the heritage of a people, to move within a particular region for their own gain, that they can help destabilize an entire region in hopes of conquering the children of Ishmael within Islam and the Muslims. But even that's going to backfire. According to what's written, it says the Muslims are going to rise up. They're the ones that are going to actually go into conflict with them in that place called Armageddon. That's where it's going to start. The Muslims are going to jump it off because they're the ones within that region that are under attack. It's all prophetic. I mean, it's written. I mean, I talked about it. We did a session on it. But right now, we're looking at the truth about the real Israel, exposing the Israeli deception, saying the children are still out there. They're just scattered abroad, and they need to hear this vibration, that their ears can perk up, as he said, my children will hear my voice. And they're not going to follow anyone else, meaning you're going to live according to this law. You're not going to live according to their law. If you live according to their law, you're not his children. He said, you're going to hear his voice, his law. He said, you're not going to follow anyone else. You're going to follow his law, not their law. But then look, as I said, for those of you that feel like you ain't going to do it, like you're going to stick with the lies and the hell with what I'm talking about. When your Jesus return within salvation in Luke 19 and 27, oh, he not coming with love, hugs, and kisses. He's still staying in line with everything that I've talked about from the Old Testament tying into the New Testament. What's going to happen to the wicked? Even those of you that say, I believe in Jesus, but ain't doing nothing that Jesus said needs to be done, centered around the example that he set, that you should sin no more, that you would hear his voice and follow it, not them. Luke 19 and 27. But those mine enemies. Ooh. They don't talk to you like this in your church, do they? They try to make you think you don't have no enemies. He said, but those mine enemies, meaning those that don't want to live according to righteousness, that you think you're going to keep the practices of disruption, chaos, the practices of destruction, unrighteousness into position and or place, you're the enemy. But those mine enemy, which would not that I should reign over them in righteousness. He said, bring them here. Bring them. Bring all of them. Bring them here. You think you have a reason as to why you're not going to conform to righteousness? Bring them here. Bring them. Bring them. Let me hear them. And after that, bring them. He said, and slay them before me. Oh, they don't talk to you about that, Jesus. He said, if they're not going to conform to this law, to this standard, to these testimonies, to these statutes, to these policies, these procedures, to bring them here. Revelation 2 and 27. He says, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. The world is going to go through a change, you all. It's inevitable. You have grace now to pivot, to start rehearsing the righteous acts. You got to deal with it one day, one step at a time. Show yourself committed. Make the decision that you want to live according to righteousness, and it will find you based on your commitment. But you can't be double-minded. You can't think you're going to trick the law. One day in, one day out. He says, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers. As he said, bring them here. She said, slay them before me. Even as I received of my Father, meaning we will have the same power. Because at that point, we have the celestial flesh. We stand as he stands in righteousness. As I received of my Father, meaning we're joint heirs. I then would have the same power that Christ would have. Does that put me over? No. Because within the understanding of righteousness, I know my role, my position. I play my part in righteousness like a number of you play your part in wickedness. You know your rule within, or you know your place within the status of government within this society in wickedness. So to be an heir and to have and to share within that in righteousness, I have the same thing as Christ. And those that receive the celestial flesh have the same power, the same ability in righteousness, not to be taken and used for our own, whatever we think we want to do. It will be according to standard, strict discipline, something a number of you hate. So we will be joint heirs. But in order to become a joint heir, we first have to overcome. We have to overcome the pressure of the wicked. That's what's keeping us back. The ways of the world. Romans 8:17, he says, and if children, then heirs. Heirs of God. And joint heirs with Christ. If so be that we suffer with him. Now, right here, because the number of you, I don't want to suffer. Why I got to suffer? Look at how they live. I want to live on the good life. Well, the suffering is talking about the fact that you resist corruption and wickedness. For a number, that would be suffering. To deny those things, as he denied those things. And to understand that to live according to this standard of righteousness, those within the world of corruption are going to hate you. That will cause suffering. And for some, the pressure of that hate will make you conform back to the world of wickedness because you can't deal with the pressure. He says, if so be that we suffer with him, that we may also glorify together. That's what makes you an heir. That's what will give you the same power. Luke 12:46. The Lord of that servant shall come in the day when he looked, talking about those of you that want to say, oh, I just believe in Jesus, or those of you that feel like you don't have to deal with no laws and you good and, you know, it's innate and you just make this thing up as you go along. The Lord of that servant will come in the day when he look not for him. It's like, you're not expecting it. You think all of this is just some grand fairy tale. And at the hour when he is not aware, you're going to be caught off guard and will cut him asunder. As he said, bring him before me, slay them all before me, and will cut him asunder and will appoint his portion with the unbelievers. As I said, you're in the vehicle with the unrighteous. You're going to receive the reward of the wicked. Matthew 12:18. Behold, my servant, talking about that faithful and that righteous steward, talking about the saints, those that are going to rule within righteousness. Behold, my servant. You can't be his servant and you're tied to the mannerisms of this world. I don't care what they've told you within the lies of the religion. It just can't happen. Thank you all for coming into the live. If you tap the screen, that don't cost nothing. That's how you show your support for the live. You share the live, you repost the live. You can share it in your stories also. He says, behold, my servant whom I have chosen, which goes back to the other part. You got folks out here thinking they can choose God. Like for everything that I'm doing, I can't bogart my way into righteousness. For everything that I'm doing, I could be rejected. But does that mean I'm going to stop what I'm doing to then convert myself back to the way of corruption? No. I'm going to give all my energy, effort, and my interest into the scope of righteousness in hopes that I receive that celestial flesh, in hopes that I am of that chosen. Because you can't choose God like they want you to think in the religion. You can only rehearse these righteous acts and look for the expectation that upon the return that you'll receive that gift of the celestial flesh. He says, whom I have chosen, not that you chose him. So you could say you believe in Jesus all you want. You can confess with your mouth all you want. If you're not of the chosen, you're just not of the chosen. You can't bogart your way into it. He talks about those who think they can and how you receive the upset. The best that we can do is focus our attention to righteousness. That even if we're not chosen, that we would have a chance still to serve in righteousness. Like in the world of the wicked, there are those that are ruling that do what they do and will never be in that position and or place, but we serve them in wickedness. I hope you understand. He says, whom I have chosen. He says, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. His soul is well pleased because upon the returning, he found them doing. Not vainly uttering they believe, but doing. He says, I will put my spirit upon him. The spirit upon him is the law. As he said, these words that I speak to you, they are truth. They're life, they're light. God is a spirit. It's the word. His name is the word of God. He says, I will put my spirit upon him, meaning the law, the statutes, the standard. That's the spirit. That's the thing that you go by. That's how you govern. That's how you discipline yourself. That's how you stay away from sin or breaking the law. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall show judgment, meaning now you're going to go about and make all the corrections based on this standard. No different than they make judgments based on their standards. Who gets 5 years, 10 years life, or who life they take, or whatever. But they're under or in a system of corruption. We're talking about having this done within a system of righteousness. Why y'all mad? He says, and she'll show judgment to the Gentiles. He shall not strive, nor cry, neither shall any man hear his voice in the streets. I wanted to put this up because a lot of folks like to argue and like to debate, and they think we're supposed to do those things. And they take all this stuff out of context. Because right here, it's expressed, you're not going to hear his voice in the streets. Does that mean you don't teach on the street? No, that's not what that means. But I'm not going to sit there. I ain't going back and forth with you. I ain't going back and forth with you. When he says, he shall not strive nor cry, like, if you don't get it, you don't get it. Just get out the way. We're trying to reach those that can hear. I ain't got time to keep arguing with someone that don't believe, someone that have a totally separate position. Go on. I'm supposed to cry and lift up my voice, but for those that will hear, for those that can see, not for those of you that your mind is already made up. As he said, I didn't come for the righteous. I came as a physician to uplift those that need righteousness. So he's not going to strive, meaning argue and debate with you. It's not going to be out on the street going back and forth with you over something that you didn't come to learn. Matthew 7:29. For he taught them as one having authority. This is why he don't strive and go back and forth, and I don't focus on debating. I'm teaching with authority because what I have been given has been given to me to explain. That for those that can hear it will grab onto it and use it to change their life. This is not about anyone's religion. I'm not bringing you into a religion. I'm asking you to use the law of the Lord, which is perfect to convert your soul. That's all I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to stand on discipline. I'm asking you to become the change that you want to see. I'm asking you to identify what righteousness is and separate yourself from unrighteousness. I'm not asking you to become a Christian. I'm not asking you to become a Judaism. I'm not asking you to become anything but righteous. And the way that you do that is by applying a certain standard to your life, because the way that you are wicked is by applying a certain standard to your life. He taught them as one having authority, not as the scribes. Those of you that just want to debate and argue about your religion, about your philosophies. I don't have time for it. I ain't come here for that. I came here to show individuals where righteousness lives, how to apply it to their life that they can change and or raise their spirit and be in position to receive the celestial flesh. While we have time, using grace to your advantage. Mark 13:34. For the Son of Man is as a man taking a journey far. Looking at the fact that right now there's like, where's this, this Mahdi? Where's this Messiah? Where's Hamashiach? Oh, y'all been talking that for over 2,000 years. Well, good for you, because it gives you a chance to find righteousness. Because if that Hamashiach return, if that Jesus return, and you're not on point, you're going to receive the reward of the wicked. This is an opportunity to pivot for righteousness. That's all I'm asking you all. Change your behavior. I'm not asking you to join Christianity, Catholicism, Judaism. I'm asking you to change a system in way of life. I'm asking you to discard the law of death and identify with the law of life. in hopes that you can receive the celestial flesh. The Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants. This is the position that I take, one as authority, because Hamashiach is not here right now. But understanding what was left and what's given to me, to be that faithful servant in righteousness, I must talk to you about the condition centered around the law of life. I must bring you away from those practices, policies, and procedures and statutes and that way of unrighteousness and the law of death that's so convenient for us all. And gave authority to his servants. So again, I speak with authority, talking to you about these hidden meanings and this allegory. I don't teach like other people teach. I'm not supposed to. This is what was given to me. And for those that can hear and align, then you will, because everyone's prophesying in part. And on that day, when the election it's being made, then it'll be made. But for those that can hear, within this understanding, it's meant for you to hear this, that you can make that assessment, make that judgment, and think to be accountable for you. Know what it means to save yourself. Let every man be persuaded in his own mind. And gave authority to his servants. And to every man his work, his work. He keeps talking about this work. And in Christianity, they keep telling you it ain't no work. In the religion, they keep lying to you, saying there's nothing to do. But he keeps talking about this work, and this is in the New Testament, and some of y'all like to say, oh, you're in the Old Testament. No, I'm in both, showing you how they align perfectly. But because a number of you want to stay tied to the corruption, you don't want this to work. You don't want this to make sense, because it would then mean that you have to be accountable for you. But right now, in the way that the world is set up through democracy and through Christianity, man, it's a free fall. You can have as much corruption and as much sin as you want, and it's okay. They try to make you feel through democracy that there's some justice. It's not. They try to make you feel that through Christianity that there's some salvation, but it's not. Because Christianity is not centered around anything of substance, but a vain belief. You come into it and you can stay that way. It's as if God just accepts anything and everything. What he accepts is you using the law of the Lord to convert your soul. That's what he accepts, but you reject that part because the religion says, just come as you are. So you flock up in there and you stay as you are. Your change is minimal, if any. As I said before, you got men up in there sleeping with men, women with women. You got the pastor chasing the deacon's wife and the women. And I mean, it's crazy. And you all call that the house of God. And you know it's rampant throughout all 30 plus some odd thousand divisions and branches, and that's not God. On the return of God and through righteousness, he said it's all one. The only way you can do that is centered around a system that you all seem to reject so vehemently to stay under the guise or to stay under the way of corruption. That's no guise. It's truly corruption. It's a guise of righteousness. That's what it is. It's not real. They want you to think democracy and their religion is centered around something upright, but it's not. It's a trick. It's a trick. And those who know, they should talk about it. He said, for the Son of Man is like one taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servant and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. And commanded the porter to watch, meaning study the prophecies. Meditate on the testimony. The testimony and prophecy, that's synonymous. He tells us what to do. But the religion denies everything that's said for us to do. And when you understand, based on the testimony, the prophecy, and the law, in righteousness to do these things, that's the end of the matter. That's the end of the matter. Isaiah 42 and 3, you all. A bruised reed shall he not break. See, because some of you, you're like a bruised reed blowing in the wind, like that thing on the branch that's kind of broken, you might just fly off. That's where a number of you are. As they say, you on the fence. But he said that bruised reed, he's not going to break it. He's going to try to mend it. He's going to try to fix it. But with what? The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. You have to commit not to religion. You have to commit to understanding the standard. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. That's the thing that's going to heal that bruised reed. He says, a bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench, meaning I see it smoking. I'm not just going to throw water on it. Like, I'm not trying to put you out. I'm trying to help you understand how to become that roaring fire again. What's the substance that's needed in order to overcome wickedness and corruption? We can't overcome wickedness and corruption by continuing to follow their policies, the mischief within law that they've created through statutes and acts. He says, and the smoking flax he shall not quench. He shall bring forth judgment unto truth. Bringing forth judgment unto truth, I'm bringing your attention to the fact that there is a law of life that overcomes the law of death. And in that, you can stand on truth. You say you want truth, but you deny the principles that support it to live according to your own understanding, to your own peril. Luke 12 and 47. And that servant which knew not his Lord's will, because y'all love to talk about the will of God, but you're not understanding the will of God is tied to the law of life, which is tied to his law, his statutes, his commandments. And then you reject that again. But he tells you, as you want to know the will of God, he tells you what it is. Let's read it. Who knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself. Because a number of you are not preparing yourself as it's being brought to your attention what the will is. You're just going to continue to reject it. Neither did according to his will. What is this will? He says, he shall be beaten with many stripes. As he said, bring them to me. All those that don't want to follow, that don't want to deal with righteousness, just bring them. We're going to deal with them. Now let's look at what the will is. And again, that's the one Hamashiach, the one Jesus, Yahushua, the one that Christianity tells is coming with hugs and kisses and that's just going to love on everybody. Right here again, he's saying for that one that's going to deny the will and think you just going to do what you want to do and live as to how you think you're going to just make this up. He said, oh, you're going to get dealt with. Now let's find out what the will is based on what's written so we can have some clarity to this thing as we're talking about the allegory, the hidden meaning, going beyond on the face of literally what's written. But let's make it make sense so we can apply it to our life. That we can have a standard in righteousness according to a law of life to defeat, beat, overcome the law of death. Those that are working within unrighteousness, there's only one way to beat them. And that's through the principles of righteousness. You all want change, but you don't want to change. You want somebody else to change and you want somebody else to fix it for you. But as long as we function within the law of death, we're vulnerable. They have the advantage. They have the advantage. But here, if you want to understand the will of God, he says in Psalms 40:8, I delight to do thy will. So now we're going to understand what the will is so you can stop trying to make it up and look at it as if it's just something so mystical. I delight to do thy will. Oh my God. He says, yea, thy law is in my heart. So if you want to know the will of God, you have to look at what the law is. You have to live according to the law of life. You have to move away from the law of death. They've made it so convenient for us to live in accordance to the law of death. Move away from that. As you want to know what his will is, as he said in Luke 12:47, and that servant which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will. So the will is doing according to the law. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. But so many within the religion, they tell you, don't worry about that. But here, the will of God is his law, his statutes, his commandments, his judgments. That's the law of life. That's his will. And we're supposed to delight to do it. But a number of you reject it to live according to the law of mischief that they've put in place, centered around the corruption, centered around their policies, their procedures. The entire world is under destruction with their law, their way of life. Matthew 7:21, he says, not everyone that saith to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that do the will of my Father, which is in heaven. So he's telling you, in order to receive the celestial flesh and to be taken within righteousness, you have to do the will of the Father. He just told you in 48 that the will is the law. But you want to reject that to just say, I believe in Jesus. Some nonsense centered around a religion that men created to corrupt your mind. He says, for many shall say in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? Joyce Myers and Juanita Bynums and all of these prophetess and prophets. He said, and in thy name have we cast out devils, as you've seen them on Sundays jumping around and slapping people on the head and folks foaming at the mouth. And he says, and in thy name done many wonderful works. As they say, I know Jesus, and all of these things centered around a vain philosophy or vain deceit, because they're not doing the work. They're not doing the will according to the law. They reject that part. He says, and then I will profess to them, all of your Joyce Myers and Juanita Bynums and all of your prophets and prophetess and all of those that are jumping around and doing the glossiala, the habadaba doing the yabba dabba wee and all of that. He says he's going to profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. This is hard for a lot of you to hear, because your pastors don't deliver this message to you like this, because they say if they talk like this, they'll lose their congregation. So they put money over your soul. And they lie to you to make it sound fly to you, because they know you just want to be entertained. 1 Corinthians 2:11. For what man know the things of man save the spirit of man? Basically saying, for those of you that are tied to the mischief of law and to their policies and their procedures, that's all you know. You only know the laws or the knowledge centered around unrighteousness. These are the things that man created. That's all you know. Except he know the things what that of a man, save the spirit of man which is in him. Even so, the things of God know no man, meaning as long as you're stuck within the carnality of this world, you don't know the things of God. He said, but the Spirit of God, meaning those things that are written within the law, that's where the Spirit of God is, as it tells you, God is a spirit. That spirit is centered around the word. That word is written within the law. The thing that you reject, you vehemently despise it, because it holds you to discipline. It makes you accountable first for yourself, that you can't be a hypocrite. He says, we have received not the spirit of the world, but the Spirit which is of God, that we might know the things that are freely given to us of God. To know the things that are freely given to us of God, we have to understand the will of God, which is centered around the law and his commandments. Again, which a number of you vehemently you reject. But in order to know those things that are of God, we have to know those statutes, those commandments, those laws, those policies, those procedures. Otherwise, you only know the things of the world. He says, which things also we speak, as I'm here speaking to you about the law, the policies, the procedures, the law of life, abandoning the law of death, asking you to change your behavior, not to join somebody's religion. He says, not in the words which man wisdom teach. See, man wisdom teach you religion. To just say, I believe in Jesus and everything is going to be all right. To deal within Catholicism and kiss the feet of a statue. To go within Judaism and walk around with the white Hebrew Israelites as if, they're the true people of the book. To follow within the politics, within the American pragmatism and make America great again and whatever the Democrats want to then later talk about, but both of them have chanted make America great again. You just forgot. Bill Clinton said make America great again in 94. The Republicans just picked it up later in 2020, 2022. Y'all just forgot. This is all the same beast. But not in the wisdom that man teach. The American pragmatism, their policies, their procedures, their law, their rule, their way. They have the law of death. He said, but which the Holy Ghost teach. Now, Holy Ghost. Again, you all, we're talking about allegory, hidden meaning. This ain't got nothing to do with no ghost and no Casper. The Holy Ghost is talking about a separate thing. That Holy Ghost is talking about the law of life. That law of the Lord that's perfect, that converts your soul. That thing is separate. That way of life is different than the way of life that you know. That spirit will lead you into righteousness. That standard, that way of life. It's just talking in code. But which the Holy Ghost teach, meaning what the law teach. It's just talking in code. Dog whistle terminology. How about that? Comparing spiritual things with spiritual things, meaning you have to look at these laws and how it's written to understand what that is to be spiritual. You can't use the things within modern society to think that you can understand the law of God, the will of God, the teachings of a Holy Spirit. Just speaking in code, but giving the greater sense to the allegory that we can understand what we're talking about, breaking away from the traditions within the indoctrination, looking at the truth about the real Israel, not the Israeli deception, because the children of Israel are still out there, scattered abroad, looking to be collected and placed within their rest and have their power. But this is not a gimme. You have to be found and or seen doing the work. In 14, it says, but the natural man received not the things of the Spirit of God. For those of you that are locked into the world, what I'm saying makes no damn sense. He says, for they are foolish unto him. Neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned, meaning it's tapped into a separate understanding within righteousness, dealing with the will of God based on what's written around laws, statutes, and commandments. That's foolish to a lot of you. Wisdom of Solomon 2:22. It says, as for the mysteries of God, meaning the secrets, you all. This is the part that I focus on because you all seem to think that you can just pick up the book and, oh, you're going to understand it. That's the problem with the world and why you have these outlandish and or insane religions. Because they just picked up the book and they just made up something. It sounds good to you. But the mystery means it's a secret. Not everybody can understand the secret. If so, then why call it a mystery? It means something is hidden. And this is what we're uncovering outside of what we've been taught through the indoctrination. As for the mysteries of God, they know them not, talking about those that are tied to the law of death. Neither hope they for the wages of righteousness. Like, you're not even concerned about living righteous because you think you got it all under wraps. You think the world is the way it is and that's just what it's going to be. So you just going to get you some money. He said, nor discern a reward for a blameless work. Like, you're not realizing that if you pivot and you change for the law of life and you start living according to the will of God based on what's written through laws, statutes, and standards, that then you'll be in a better position. Like, you don't even consider that. That's just foolishness to you. Revelation 7 and number 2, he says, and I saw an angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. Now, I come to this because it just brought me to that term talking about the mark of the beast. Because on its face, when you read it, the mark of the beast and in the right hand, I mean, y'all have gone and ran with that and made it be a chip and this and that and all this other stuff. But I'm telling you, I'm speaking with authority and I'm telling you, the mark of the beast is nothing but sin. That's the hidden meaning. That's the mystery of God. The mark of the beast is sin. And I'm going to show you as we look at the mark of the righteous and or the mark for the saints. There's a mark for the beast and there's a mark for the saint. The mark for the beast is sin. All of those that refuse to live in righteousness. The mark for the saint is in righteousness. The seal for the saints, it's in righteousness. The seal for the corrupts, it's in wickedness. The mark of the beast. That's all it is. But we're dealing with allegory. And for those of you that are trying to read it literally, you've gone too far. And you want it to be chips and all this other outlandish stuff, but it's behavior. The mark of the beast is behavior. Having the seal of the living God. The seal of the living God is that thing for the saints. The mark of the righteous. And cried with a loud voice to the 4 angels to whom it was given to hurt the earth and the sea, meaning those that are with the mark of the beast, they're going to be eradicated. But those that have the mark of the righteous or the seal of the living God, they will be in standing. Saying, hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees. Like, wait a minute. Don't go in, to deal with those that have the mark of the beast or those that are dealing within unrighteousness. Wait a minute. Neither hurt the sea nor the trees till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads. Now, you might try to take this literally, but the seal of the servants in their forehead, it comes back to those that have pivot, those that are turning, and those that want to deal with the law of life. That's the seal that's going to be in your forehead, centered around your behavior. He says, and I heard the number of them which were sealed. And there were sealed 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. As we talk about the truth about the real Israel and not the Israeli deceptions, because the children of Israel are still out there. Still out there. Dispersed, spread out. Don't even know who they are. Going by so many other misnomers and names that they've been given from different degrees of captivity and slavery and just lost. And the 144,000, that's the first wave. But that's the seal for the righteous. That's the mark of the righteous. To have that law sealed in your mind. To be living according to those standards within the law of life and to have abandoned the law of death, their policies, their procedures, their practices, American pragmatism. Jeremiah 51:5. Thus saith the Lord, behold, I will rise up against Babylon. And here I have to point out that when it's talking about Babylon, it's not talking about the ancient Babylon. This is dealing with prophecy. Looking into the future, again, allegory, not looking at what's on its face. We're going to talk about this mystery of God, the thing that's hidden, because it's now projecting into the future. We're now living today in the scope or concept of the modern Babylon. If it was talking about the Babylon back then, you'd have to know within the writings, it said Babylon would be uninhabitable. So Iraq, you all, cannot be the Babylon that this is talking about because people are over there living right now. This is why this is a prophecy. I will rise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me. Seal the righteous, the mark of the beast. You have the mark of the beast if you refuse to look at the law of the Lord, which is perfect, and use that to convert your soul. At that point, you're against all that is righteous. You're against the will of God. He said that rise up against me, he's going to send a destroying wind. That's where you heard me say it will happen without hand. You're going to deal with wind. You're going to deal with hail. You're going to deal with lightning. You're going to deal with all sorts of natural elements without hand. You'll be destroyed. He says, and will send unto Babylon fanners, meaning those that will separate the wicked from the righteous, and shall fan her. Draw that line. Teach righteousness. Make way for those that want to cross over. And shall empty her land, meaning move those out of that position of wickedness, because that land, Babylon, this America, is going to be destroyed. It's going to be uninhabitable. He says, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. America is in trouble, according to the prophecy. As he says, watch. But you all want to deny this and act as if everything is cool. America is in trouble. They are against her round about her. You all, you don't see it. The offense is going to come from within America. See, to you all, this is a joke. It don't mean nothing. But those within the upper echelons of the government and those positions and or places, they take this serious. That's why the POTUS, number 47, he created that memorandum, NSPM 7, trying to make dissent unlawful. See, they're trying to get a jump on it. So they just want to rally up whomever or whatever they can. See, they take this serious because they know the book says the assault is going to come from within the land. Y'all think it's a joke, but they know. Revelations 18:4. And I heard another voice from heaven crying, saying, "Come out of her, my people," begging you. And I always say the question is, are you his people? Because not everybody is this people as we talk about the truth about the real Israel, focused on the Israeli deception. And realizing the real children of Israel, they're still out there in the diaspora, not knowing who they are. But hopefully you can hear within the vibration of these words and come to understand to pivot. Walk away from the law of death and find yourself living according to a law of life, one day at a time, one step at a time. It's not easy to overcome the addiction of evil and corruption, but we have to do it. And the remedy is the law of life. Not the religion of Catholicism, Christianity, or Judaism. Those things are part of the trap. Come out of her, my people, that you be partakers, that ye be not partakers of her sins, that you receive not of her plagues. This is what I've been talking to you about. Come out of her. Separate yourselves. Jeremiah 15:5. He says, "For Israel have not been forsaken." So for everything that's going on within the corruption, you all, as we talk about the truth about the real Israel and going beyond the Israeli deception, the real children of Israel have not been forsaken, although it seems as if they have. But let's follow what's written. For Israel have not been forsaken. And we're not talking about the white Hebrew Israelites. We're not talking about those that are the imposters, those that have hijacked the heritage of a people, only to move into a region and destabilize the land in hopes of overcoming the children of Ishmael and suppressing Islam and the Muslims. For Israel have not been forsaken, nor Judah of his God. Says of the Lord of hosts, through their land was filled with sin. Though their land was filled with sin against the Holy One of Israel. Like, for all of the nonsense that we've done, we've not been forgotten. But we have to turn. We have to pivot to the law of life. We have to move ourselves away from that law of death. He says, flee out of the midst of Babylon, coming back to that point. It's not talking about Iraq, ancient Babylon. It's talking about today, America. Flee out of the midst of Babylon. This is the mystery of God that we're talking about. That secret thing, you all. Flee out of the midst of Babylon, meaning turn from their policies, their procedures. Turn from the American pragmatism. Turn from the mischief and law that they've created. Learn a new law centered around the law of the Lord being perfect, that one thing that's going to convert your soul, not their religion. Their religion will entrap your soul. Flee out of the midst of Babylon and deliver every man his soul. This is all I'm talking to you about. Save yourself. Position yourself to follow a different standard. Discipline yourself. Wean yourself off of the corruption. Wean yourself off of the lies. And the only way you can do that is by having a righteous standard. You can't wean yourself off of lies using their thing, policies, procedures, institutions, education, understanding. Those things were centered and or built around the mind and or the traditions of men. It's meant to keep you enslaved. Oh, and upholding the European inferiority. I say that because they act as if they're superior, but they are truly inferior and afraid. He says, deliver every man his soul. He said, be not cut off in her iniquity. Like, don't keep, this is a warning. Don't allow yourself to just haphazardly keep dealing with these people because time is of the essence. And I real quick, just to say, as it says, deliver every man his soul, I want to go to Revelations 18:13 as to where if you read that part, Revelations 18 and 12, it just talks about all of these different commodities and how rich Babylon is going to be and what it deals in. And in that, it tells you it deals with the souls of men, slavery and the souls of men. And this is what we need to salvage and or save our soul from these corruptors. But it goes in Revelation 18 and 13, looking at some of the commodities, it says cinnamons, odors, ointments, frankincense, wine, oil, flour, wheat, beasts, sheep, horses, chariots, and slaves, and the souls of men. So when we look at Jeremiah 51 and 6, and it says, flee out of the midst of Babylon, talking about American pragmatism in this day and time, dealing with prophecy, because America is that Babylon. America is the one in power and or position. These are the last days. You can't get no more wicked and or corrupt than this. And deliver every man his soul, because we've been enslaved through their policies and through their procedures. And be not cut off in her iniquity, for this is the time of the Lord's vengeance. This is what it's saying. Prepare yourself, because if you have not made the decision to stand for righteousness and live and practice or rehearse these laws that you can make yourself better, you're going to receive within the vengeance, and you're going to receive the reward of the wicked. He says, he will render unto her a recompense. Babylon have been a golden cup, like America is rich. And they boast about how wealthy they are, how powerful and strong they are. That's the Babylon of today, the mystery Babylon, the secret Babylon. See, the book tells you it's a secret Babylon, so it can't be talking about the one that you already know. That's not a secret. But the mystery Babylon today, that's America. That's why God is not going to bless America, and it will not be great again if that's what you consider greatness. Babylon have been a golden cup in the Lord's hand that made all the earth drunken. See, through the policies of America, everybody crazy as hell. You ain't drunk off of wine or anything of that. You're drunk off of the corruption. The earth is in decline. Everything is in decay. He said, the nations have drunken of her wine, meaning everybody's in line with their policies, their procedures, the American pragmatism and their standards and their rule. It's the law of death. Therefore, the nations are mad. The entire earth is off its course because the earth being in the hand of the wicked, everybody's following unrighteousness. Revelation 17 and number 1, he says, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials and talked with me, saying unto me, come here, I will show thee the judgment of the great whore that sit upon many waters. America is that mystery Babylon that sit upon many waters, as look at how many bases they have all across the world, over 800 and some odd different bases. This is that great whore, according to what's written, that sit upon many waters, talking about that mystery Babylon. It's America. He says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. Symbolically, it's talking about they have went about to follow the law of death. The kings of the earth have denied the law of life, to live delicately and to benefit with liars and thieves and those that have corrupted the world. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk. For us as people, society and societies abroad, we've been polluted through their corruption, through their laws, the way they create mischief in the laws that they create, the statutes that they write, the policies and the procedures. We're drunk off of wickedness. With the wine of her fornication, because of their policies, their procedures, their laws. That law of death. He said, so he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw the woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of the name of blasphemy. In America, that's all you get. The pollution of blasphemy. Having 7 heads and 10 horns, just talking about all of its allies and the position and power that they've set themselves up with all the other kings and nations in the world today. He said, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, like was rich. As America loves to brag about their richness, as we're looking at who this mystery Babylon is, as we talk about the truth about the real Israel, getting away from the Israeli deception, knowing that the children of Israel are still out there. They're just scattered abroad. That's all. But they have not been forgotten. He says, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, they're rich. Having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. We were just reading in Jeremiah where it was saying it was a golden cup in the Lord's hand. That golden cup that rich nation, the mystery Babylon today, is the superpower. It's those that run America. He says, and upon her head was a name written, Mystery Babylon. So it would not be ancient Babylon, because mystery means secret. So it's a mystery Babylon, something to come in the future. Well, today is the future. And that mystery Babylon is America, looking at how delicate, or the delicacies, how rich it is, how they've dealt, in slavery, and how they deal with the souls of men, and how they run commerce, how they deal with sanctions and embargoes. That's your mystery Babylon. That's the beast of today. That's the one who has the entire world off course. And that's why it has to be stopped. In the name of righteousness and according to what's written. Without hand, meaning they're going to deal with the catastrophe. And it says it's going to happen within. And it also says that her allies are turning or would turn against her. We see all of this stuff happening in real time right now today. Each and every one of those things I named out, her allies turning against her, you see that happening. The fact that it would happen internally, you see that happening. The fact that it will be destroyed without hand, oh, you see that happening. When you look at the fires, when you look at the hailstorms, when you look at the flooding, oh, these things are minimal with respect to how it's going to take place during the impact of the collapse. But if you're watching, if you understand prophecy, you see it and you can't unsee it. Upon her head was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the great, as they love to brag how great they are, how powerful they are. It says the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. The abominations of the earth is true, you all. While the earth is in their hand, it's in decline. That's an abomination. They can't bring peace. Everything they offer, it helps to promote decay. The medicine is no good. The food is no good. The water is no good. The air is messed up. Everything under their rule is an abomination. That's why it has to stop. Otherwise, there would be no humanity. And I know you all want to continue to live. And any man within his right mind would not want to live in a decayed state and or in unrighteousness. Any man in his right mind. And I'm going to read these last verses from Ecclesiasticus 18:26 on down to 33, and I'm done. I know I'm overtime. I'm overtime right now. But I'm going to read these last verses and I'm done. Thank you all for coming into the live. I just say tap the screen. That's how you show your support for the live. That part don't cost nothing. Right? Coming down to the end. I would say share it, repost it, but I'm about to close out. Thank you all that have come, at this day and for this time. In the last few verses from Ecclesiasticus 18, start out with 16. He says, from morning until the evening, the time is changed. And this goes to what I'm telling you. The unrighteousness is not going to last as we deal with the hidden meaning, you all. As we deal with the allegory, not looking at this for face value, but come to understand in code what's being said, that we can make the adjustment in our life and get on the right side. He says, from the morning until the evening, the time is changed. Righteousness is going to overcome unrighteousness. The wicked will be dealt with. And all things are soon done before the Lord. So I just gave you that hidden meaning. All things to be done before the Lord, which is soon, it's the eradication of the corruption and the evil. He says, a wise man will fear in everything. A wise man will fear in everything, meaning the law of life. You'll respect that. He says, and in the day of sinning, he will beware of offense. You're going to look at the standard in life that speaks to the law of life, and you're going to be aware not to trample on that. Otherwise, you're no different than the unrighteous. Just stay over there. If you don't want to apply yourself to the higher standard, just stay over there. He will beware of the offense. He says, but a fool will not observe the times. I just got talking about the observing of times. As you look at how the American allies they're walking away. People are dissatisfied how, the onslaught is going to come from within, and how they're going to have to deal, with things happening without hand from the hail and the natural catastrophes. A fool is not going to observe that as something that was written to pay attention as how close we are to the climax, to the impact of the collapse. He says, every man of understanding know wisdom. Every man that deals with the law, because that's the understanding that we've been talking about, we've been highlighting, we've been pointing out, centered around the law of life, centered around laws, statutes, and commandments that promote life, not their law within mischief that promotes death. You know what I'm talking about. You live it every day. It just helps to push you even further into the spiral and or the decline and or decay. The only thing that can save you from unrighteousness and decay is righteousness, the law of life. I don't know why it's so hard for some of you. He says, every man of understanding know wisdom, and will give praise unto him that found her. That they were understanding in saying, read that again. That found her. They that were of understanding in sayings became also wise themselves, meaning for those of you that pivot and come to the law of life and now subject yourself to a standard within righteousness, you too will become wise. He says, and poured forth exquisite parables. So the parables are these conversations like what we're having right now that so many people can't understand because they don't know the law of life. They haven't made the switch to even want to understand it. So this sounds foolish to them. He says, go not after thy lust. This part is key. Because as we look at the world as it is today, it supports your lust. And he's telling you to deny that because that's the law of death. And I'm telling you, pivot. Throw all of the religion in the trash, Catholicism, Christianity, Judaism. Throw all of that in the trash. Focus on the law of the Lord being perfect to convert your soul. That helps you to deny your lust. That helps you to get away from American pragmatism. That helps you to move away from their policies, their procedures, their practices, and their corruption, the law of death. He says, go not after thy lust, but refrain thyself from thine appetite. Now, real quick, Romans 6, and then we'll jump back to these last few verses. Romans 6:12. Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body. Because if you allow this corruption to continue reigning within the mortal body, when time for the transition come that you drop the terrestrial flesh and we receive the celestial flesh, you won't be on par to get it. Because you will not have been doing the work to eradicate and or to clean yourself up or to move off or to overcome the addiction as we talked about. Sin, lust, this law of death, it's an addiction. And so many of us are or have been addicted and don't know how to get off. It's the worst addiction ever. But the antidote stands within these policies, these practices, these procedures centered around what's called the will of God. The will of God is the antidote. Knowing the laws, statutes, the commandments, the ordinances, the judgments. Let not sin reign in your mortal body, that ye should obey it in the lust thereof. Deny it. Fight it. He says, neither yield your members as instruments of unrighteousness. Fight it. And the only way you can fight it, you can't fight it with American pragmatism. You can't fight it through their institutional understanding, their seminary schools, their laws, their procedures, their politics. You can't fight it with that. You're only feeding it in that. But don't let your members be instruments of unrighteousness unto sin, meaning continuing to break the law of life, trying to defy the law of life, but ultimately defying and denying yourself. He said, but yield yourselves unto God, meaning yield yourself unto the practice, unto the principle, unto the law, unto the statute, because that's the thing that's going to make you whole. That's the thing that's going to clean you up. That's the God that you serve within the will of God, the law, the statute. As those that are alive from the dead, see, if we take to these practices, we're moved from this dead state and we come to life. I know they're not talking to you about this in your religion because they say just believe in Jesus. Just confess with your mouth and say you believe in Jesus and miraculously, you're going to receive some reward. That's a trick. That's a trap. If you confess with your mouth, you then better turn around and do this work to remove yourself out of the mind state of the unrighteous. That's the battle. That's the thing that you have to overcome, the mindset. That's it. The mark of the beast is the mindset in sin. The mark of the righteous and or the seal of the righteous is the mindset within the law of life. That's the fight. That's the struggle. As those that are alive from the dead, when you find the law of life, you become alive and you can look back and remember how you lived before in the chaos and the corruption. He says, and your members as instruments of righteousness unto God, meaning now we're focused on doing the will of God according to what's written, based on a law, a statute, a standard, and not what's written based on the law of mischief that they've put out, centered around the law of death, their policies, their procedures, their traditions, their customs, their judgments, their statutes. In the last two verses, Ecclesiasticus, looking at number 31, that was coming off of Ecclesiasticus 18 and 31. If thou give thy soul that desire that please her, she will make thee a laughing stock. Meaning, if you continue to live according to the American pragmatism, the mischief of law that they've created, their policies, their procedures, you're going to be made a laughing stock, meaning you're going to receive the reward of the wicked. You're not going to survive during the collapse, during the calamity. You will not receive the seal of the righteous. You will be sealed in with the mark of the beast. I ain't talking about no chip for those of you that come in lately. Hate you missed it. We gave a good explanation to what the mark of the beast is and how it's sin, simply sin, a mindset, and how the mark of the righteous and or the seal of the righteous that will be placed upon those of the children of God is different. But if you stay within their way of life, you're going to be a laughingstock to thine enemies that malign thee. Take not pleasure in much good cheer, meaning you can be in the world, but don't be of the world. Don't get overly excited about all of this corruption. He said, neither be tied to the expense thereof. This is hard for a lot of us because this is all we know. And this last verse is a banger. He says, be not made a beggar. And we're going to unpack this one right here because they screwed all of us with this one. But here within the law of life, he says, don't be made a beggar. And you all think it's the guy out on the street with his hand out. But you're just as much of a beggar than he is. You just don't know it because you don't know the law of life. You don't know the statutes and the commandments. You don't know the will of God, most of you. But this is what he said. Last verse and we're done. Be not made a beggar by banqueting upon borrowing. Do I have to break that down? Don't be a beggar by banqueting upon borrowing. Let me break it down. Because we're talking about the allegory, the hidden meaning. And see, a number of you will read that and you'll just read over it and you'll keep going. And I get it. Because if you don't understand something, you just keep reading. But as we deal with the allegory, the hidden meaning, the dog whistle, the code, cracking the code, explaining the secret, the mystery. Today they have everybody tied to the credit system. That makes you a beggar. And God is saying, wean yourself off of that. The credit system is no good, but in their system of corruption, it's the way to go. It's the road to success. But within wisdom to righteousness, it tells you to establish yourself differently. Coming from not knowing to knowing, you then have to use that to your advantage to then know how to pull yourself off of it to maintain your position. But you don't look at it and say, oh, To hell with that. I'm get me some credit and keep getting me some credit. No, you have to then want to understand how to establish true substance in righteousness. But the warning right here as we close, be not made a beggar. They've made us all beggars, setting us up on credit by banqueting upon borrowing, when thou hast nothing in thy purse. For thou shalt lie in wait for thine own life and be talked on. Meaning they're making fools out of us with this credit system. As he said, they dealt with the souls of men in slavery. The credit system is another form of slavery, entrapping the souls of men. But he's telling us not to banquet on it. Like when you go to a banquet, you get all dressed up and, it's a thing. He's letting us know to position ourselves to deal with true substance, that we're not begging, and that we fill our purse, and that our purse is not empty, and we have to keep going to them, begging to borrow. But as long as we're in their system, they're going to hold us to that degree of servitude. And that's why it has to end. And that's why we have to bring ourselves up out of it by using the law of life. So I've held you all long enough today. And I want to thank you for coming into the live. And I appreciate, those of you that stuck around and made sure that you could get this. If you missed anything, give me about 15 minutes. I'll put the link to the YouTube channel up on the page, where you'll go to my page, and right under where it says Saturday at 11, you'll see a link, and that link will take you to the Kingdom of Israel. That's where I post all of these videos. The Prophecy 2026 series. You can look at that. If you missed this video, it'll be posted up there within the hour and a half. If you missed anything, you can get it. But all the other videos are there, as well. Subscribe to that channel. So again, the YouTube channel the link will be on this page right under where it says Saturday at 11 o'clock. You give me 5-10 minutes after we shut off the live, I'll put it up to make sure you have access to it. Click that link and go to the YouTube channel and subscribe. All right. I appreciate you all. Thank you for coming out on this Sabbath, and hopefully you enjoy the rest of the Sabbath. All right. I say shalom, you all.